Friends and neighbors, hi, welcome to Mission Control, Houston's Hockey Podcast. I am your host, Matt Savage, and it's Stick Tap Tuesday for Hockey Week across America. And my Stick Tap goes to today's guest, who you've already seen, Lance Rosenberg, who is co-chair of Hockey Day in Houston. Believe we will talk about that today, and president of the Houston chapter of Hockey Players in Business. Lance, sir, welcome again to the show.
Nice to see you again, Matt. It's been a long time.
It's going great. Anyway, all right. So let's start with the standard question for hockey fans and players that are in Houston. What got you into hockey?
Well, first off, Matt, thank you for having me. It's you being part of the committee now. It means a lot to all of us, and then bringing Tushnet on last week and Jack Stanfield on, and I know we got other guests coming next week. I cannot thank you enough. We're all here to be a team and support each other one-on-one, so thank you. I just want to apologize if you hear anybody barking. That's not my wife yelling at me. It's going to be our 6-month-old puppy. Yeah, I said it. She's about to come upstairs. She's listening downstairs right now, but 6-month-old puppy. She's very vocal, so I apologize. But what got me into hockey?
Well, hold on. Let's talk more about the puppy. What's the puppy's name?
It is Reki, but it's going to be Rexy to my wife, but it is Reki, like Mark Recchi. So I went both ways. Mark Recchi was one of my favorite hockey players growing up. And then Rexy is the name of the bar the Flyers used to hang out at in the 70s and 80s in Jersey. So I win both ways. But to me, she's Recchi. To my wife, it's Rexy.
As long as the dog's not confused, what difference does it make, right? Is this the naming convention in the Rosenberg household? Just name the pets after hockey players and references?
It is. My father started the trend back when I was in college. So it really has become, we've had a Pelly, we've had a Mika, we've had an Ilka, we've had an Ilya. I have a Tuca, and now a Recchi. So as you can see, European hockey names seem to work best, but obviously honor, some of the hockey heroes when they live upon you as pets and the most loyal companions. It's nothing can be better.
No, I think you're right about the European hockey names, though. Like you don't want a dog named Steve. It's like, yeah, let's have a European name. All right, I'm sorry though.
When you have a dog that has the personality of the namesake, so our Tuca has the personality of Tuukka Rask, so it's almost perfect.
Okay, all right. So I'm sorry, I interrupted the question right after I asked it. What got you into hockey?
Really, when I was born, my first gift was a hockey stick, a good old Hartford Whalers mini hockey stick. And my father, he from Philadelphia, but would go up to Connecticut to see family play hockey up there. And, my father was my best friend, my hero. He played freshman hockey at Colgate. He supported me throughout my journey. So it's truly my father.
Very nice. Okay. So I found something online.
Oh, boy.
Let's see here. Hold on. All right. Let's make sure the tech is working this time like I think it will. Here you go. Hey, how about that? So on NHL.com, which is probably the coolest thing I've seen for anybody I know here, besides the Energizer battery pack. And then bizarre career stats here. So do you want to talk about
can I talk about how my photo has hair in it? I mean, that's probably the best I've looked ever. No,
I don't know. I got a picture of you coming up. And I'm like, wow, that's a powerful and attractive man there. So
yeah, no, wrong guy. No, it's one of those crazy stories. I was an emergency goalie for the Flyers and Phantoms in Philadelphia, and one day I got very close. I started getting suited up in the locker room for the Boston Bruins and never got into the game. Yeah, long story short, a few months after that was posted, somebody posted that on my office door, and since then I get teased about it. Like, how do you have an NHL profile without ever playing a pro hockey game? So it's because I was this close of almost becoming the he needs to get into the net, and the Flyers were going to win that game.
I mean, still though, that's got to be the thrill of a life, because you're from Philly, yeah?
I am born and raised.
So I mean, yeah, no, that's a cool story. So got some action shots of you here that are.
Yeah, I was a real life shooter tutor. That's my claim to fame. I gave the guys a lot of confidence, you know. And I'm extremely proud of that. There was one day I got to practice with the team before they played the Devils in a playoff game. Marty Brodeur in net, and Flyers go out after scoring on me in the morning. Scored 6 goals, pulled Marty in that game, and they go on and win the series. So I call myself the best shooter tutor they ever had.
Well,
I lie, not the best. I was a great shooter tutor.
still though, I mean, yeah, sorry, it's a cool story to tell. Yeah, and this looks like a more recent photo here. Is it showing up on your end, or?
It's not. It's not.
Uh,
I see a circle, and this one, yeah, that's last year in Dallas after Hockey Day in Houston. The Flyers were in Dallas, and it was a great way to. What's awesome in that picture is you got Bush, Jimmy Jackson, who's play-by-play for the Flyers. On the right is Slava Kuznetsov, and then to my left is Brian Smith, who was my play-by-play guy when I transferred to University of Delaware. But Brian Boucher, Jim Jackson, and Slava Kuznetsov, their boys were in hockey programs when I worked in Philadelphia. So it was awesome to reconnect with them, still stay in touch, and we shared a lot of memories of the good old days back, now almost 20 years ago.
wow. Okay, so you've stayed in touch. Is that indicative of the sport, or is that you just been this lucky for this long?
I think it's a sport. There's a lot of people that come and go. When you are instrumental and a coach of, their kids, especially when they're the first coach, you stay in touch and you watch the progress. And, but obviously the ties to the Flyers organization, I'm always going to be staying in touch with them. But, it is the sport. I say it all the time. Hockey is the ultimate team sport. You get to meet some great friends no matter what level of hockey you play. You're extremely fortunate to, experience the highs and the lows with a lot of different people. And, I look today, people on our committee like Fran and Ty Schumann and Mark Tushnet, they travel with a lot of the friends that they made in Houston hockey. And it's just truly something that makes hockey so great. So extremely fortunate to, be part of, hockey in Houston.
Okay, so you said a word that I want to get back to, because you said coaching. You've been a coach, and I saw a video of you at the ECHL All-Star game.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about you at the ECHL All-Star game there?
So, obviously I'm going to go back. Hockey's such a small world. Michel Petit, who lives in the Woodlands, longtime friend, knew him, coached against him up in Philadelphia, played with the Flyers alumni together. We reconnected my last day in Houston before we moved up to St. Louis and then back. But him and some of his friends, partners, business partners, we went up to Dallas to go watch the ECHL All-Star game. And we were watching the rosters as they were getting announced. And TJ Semptenfelder, who I've known since he was 4 years old, he made the all-star team as a rookie. And, it was the first time I saw TJ. I've always tried to see him in college when he was at Northeastern or Arizona State or North Dakota. But to be able to go right up 45 and see him in Dallas or in Allen, and then also introduce him to my wife, who's heard stories. And, his father, TJ's father, and I remain in touch. It was just a true honor. And obviously, when I'm being interviewed by the Atlanta media, I'm such a softie, I started tearing up, but it meant the world to be able to see, just not just one, but it was able to hear the stories of some of these other players that were in this program. We started talking about it. We had a program. It was probably one of the first cross ice USA Hockey cross ice programs after they introduced the ADM model. And out of 26 hockey players, 14 of them have gone on to play either NCAA Division One, professional hockey, and a few were in the NHL. And then this past Olympics, I got to watch one of those guys, take home gold at the Olympics. So when you get to just be part of a journey, it's just truly humbling of how lucky and fortunate you are, and how great of a sport it is to be able to be part of that journey.
No, you might find many people that will overlook the roles of teachers and mentors and coaches, but you will not find them here. So, so that is awesome. Are you doing any coaching now?
I am. I don't have a lot of time due to work commitments, but I got to know some of the sled hockey guys, David Fleming, Andy Toppin, and they were just practicing. They weren't getting much, instruction because they were out on the ice by themselves. And they asked me to come out and try coaching, and it's now all new passion. So I made a pact with them that as long as they're committed to playing, I'm going to be committed to being as great of a coach as I can possibly become. And, one day I hope, the guys go on and play in the Paralympics. But for me, I hope that day means that I'm coaching one of those teams. It's a whole new challenge for me. It's different than playing stand-up hockey. They make sure to let me know. But it's every Saturday being able to go to the rink and coach sled hockey. It's now just truly special. And then after learning about Jim O'Neill last year, to be able to follow in his footsteps and carry on his legacy and help build a program, it's, again, with the volunteers and the help that we have, it's incredible to be part of, being able to give back to the game again.
And that brings up a day, not hockey day. We'll get to that here in a second. But Saturday coming up, we got the Paralympics coming up, and like we did with the gold medal game at Nick's place, which was crazy. What a great time! I don't think anyone watching that game outside the stadium, I don't think anyone had a better time than we did at Nick's place. But Saturday morning, 10 a.m. We'll be watching Paralympics. So and sled hockey, for those that haven't watched it, is something. I don't know what other word to use. It's something. So all right. So in us getting to know each other over the past year, I guess, I have heard of you working not only in Russia, but in Far East Russia, in the KHL. Do you want to talk about that a bit?
Through the Flyers organization, Comcast Spectacor, that had a division of arena and stadium management, I got to go over to Russia. So, it was an expansion KHL team. We helped put together the business model for the team. And then also the business model for the arena. So negotiating with different promoters in Far East Russia, hoping to get some from Asia to come over. But it was an experience because when you're there, I went from being literate to being illiterate in a matter of a plane ride. So, if it wasn't for, the bond of hockey and the relationships that formed, I say to everybody, I survived because of the Swedes that were there. Those Swedes, Joachim Lundstrom, Richard Gunier, Nick Bergfors, and Matthias Porcelain. And then our first game, we were playing the Central Red Army team, CSK. And I hear a guy speaking English, and I turn around, and it's Mike Commodore. So I turn around, I say, "Hey, I'm your new best friend." And he looks at me, he goes, "Hi, I'm Mike Commodore." I was like, "I know, I'm here working." He goes, "What are you here for?" And I tried to explain it to him, but I had tons of stories and fun with Mike Commodore and the Swedes. We just had our own little safety network, and it was to be able to experience hockey in Russia and just hear the stories of the people associated. I'm a huge history nerd, so hearing the stories about the Flyers in the Central Red Army game, or the Russian stories of the '80 Olympics, it just far exceeded any expectation, and is an incredible learning experience, not just culturally, but also about myself.
All right. So one day you and I just need to have a history talk. Okay. So you've been everywhere, really. And so my wife's from South Jersey, next to Philly, and she tells me frequently how different Houston is from Philly. And so you go Philly, Russia. How do you, with a lifelong hockey background, wind up in Houston, which is not everyone's first thought when they think hockey?
Unfortunately, after Russia happened to me, and we've all heard stories of guys going over there. I came back, and the Flyers went through some major transitions in their organization and leadership changes, and I was stuck really without a home, trying to figure out from a career standpoint what's next. And after bouncing around for a bit, I chose Houston because it had no professional hockey within 3 hours, and, it's scary to say, but I said, maybe it's time for me to grow up, get away from the game, and, really just focus on a career. But, I came to Houston. You may think that's a bad thing, but I got to work at the ballpark, met some great people, some great leaders with the Astros organization. And then, obviously the greatest thing happened to me, and that was meeting my wife down here. So, a negative always turns into a positive. So it was truly, come down here, and, there's a lot of similarities. I disagree with your wife. I think there are a lot of similarities. Especially if you go to when the Eagles are playing the Texans, you'll think it's mostly Philadelphia, but uh, no, it's been an incredible opportunity. And then, somehow an opportunity came back, and I got to go up to St. Louis and work around the game. And that's where I met TC Lewis during the COVID year. After, as everything was closed up in St. Louis, TC needed a place for USA Hockey Nationals. And from there, that started our bond. I never met TC the first 5 years that I was here. And, you know, after COVID, an opportunity for my wife to be back down to Texas, and here we are now. And I'm having so much more fun now than I did 10 years ago, because hockey's now part of my life in Houston. Not to mention that I was playing hockey, with people like Mark Tushnet, Dean Hill, Claudia Brown. That they were my support system when I was down here. My father got ill. Sean Blair, owner of the Maple Leaf Pub. But today I think about it. Tush and I spoke this morning. I only wish we could have done this 10 years ago and see what we could have had, built today.
Yeah. But we're here now, right? So um and really, had you done this 10 years ago, you couldn't have done the 50th anniversary of the WHA Arrows. There's something about that 50 mark that's special. How does someone without the Houston background, and therefore the Avco Cup nostalgia, how do you get to where you're organizing, or at least part of a team that's organizing, um, an Avco Cup reunion for the Arrows?
Um, I think it comes down to when I moved back. For the first year I was back, wasn't involved with hockey at all. I kind of shut down again, but several people, Dave Stedman, Mark Tushnet, Michelle Petit, Claudia Brown, they just kept messaging me like, come on, come play. We see you're back in Houston, and get back out onto the ice. And an opportunity came about from Hockey Players in Business. It's an organization that was founded a few years ago with a goal of being able to give back to the community and make a difference. And they asked me, did I want to open up a Houston chapter? And I'm a big believer that hockey is the ultimate networking conversational piece. With Comcast Spectacor and the Flyers, it truly was that, every morning when the ice was down, we would skate. You got to meet the executives, whether you're entry level, the intern, and build a relationship and a rapport with them. And that's how, some of my ultimate mentors in my career have come about. But, what I would say is, through Hockey Players in Business, Dean Hill and Mark Tushnet said, hey, we know you work in events and live events. Why don't you come support this event? They're struggling. They need to raise some additional money. And that's where I met, one of the nicest hockey players I've ever met. He's a great friend, Pete Donnelly. And he took me in and he said, just help me out, young man. And we did. Jack Stanfield became introduced to me. And then I got to meet Charlotte Graham, who I knew of, by being one of the few women to have her name on the Stanley Cup, and building a relationship and a rapport with her. Even to this day, we still talk weekly as through a mentorship. But we were able to take the AFCO trophy around Glenn Irwin, Charlotte, and I. That's how we got to meet the Sports Authority. And they saw the passion. They saw that, hey, there's opportunities for volunteers to do something in Houston. And, we took an event that needed to raise extra money to offset the costs, and we ended up helping them, exceed it, gave back through the 50th anniversary. And then the relationship with the Sports Authority and several others we met along the road, really were the backbone of forming Hockey Day in Houston.
Okay. So it's like you have my notes here, because that was my next question. How do we get to Hockey Day in Houston? So, Lance, how do we get to Hockey Day in Houston?
You spoke with Tush last week.
I did. He says you tell the story better. So,
well, Tush is one of the all-time best adult hockey tournament organizers that I've ever seen. He makes sure that every individual is recognized and he gets to know them. So, playing in the tournaments back, when I lived here in 2015 to 19, we were at St. Arnold's, and we were at St. Arnold's trying to pick up beer. And I said to Tush, I have an idea. And he looked at me and he said, what? I said, Hockey Day in Houston. He's like, what the hell do you mean by that? It's like, Hockey Day in Houston. We'll figure it out, but we're going to have a watch party here at St. Arnold's. So we met Lenny Ambrose from St. Arnold's, who has been a longtime supporter of hockey in Houston. And I pitched this idea. I was like, Lenny, do you think we could do street hockey in the alley? And can you put hockey up on the big screen? But we're gonna do something here, and I'm pretty sure it's gonna be big. And Lenny was on board. He used to cover the Texas Wildcatters out in Beaumont, so he was a hockey guy. And needless to say, we created I sent out this invite, and it was an event invite, Hockey Day in Houston. And Mary Adler and Ian Adler, who worked with me with the Flyers, and have deep connections to hockey. Mary and Ian wrote me and said, let's run it back like we used to do. And I was like, that's the plan, but what are you thinking? And she said, a block party. It's like, okay, but we need resources. And those resources were, the relationships that we had. So I called TC Lewis. TC, do you have a relationship with the Dallas Stars? Would they want to come to, Hockey Day in Houston? And he reaches out to them, and, the Stars were unbelievable, bringing the mascot for the first time ever. The mascot stepped foot in Houston, alumni, street hockey. And then, through this, we didn't have live music, but we, brought Morris Lukowitz in town. But it was right before Christmas. My wife and I were on vacation, and Ryan Brooks calls me up. And he said, "What are your thoughts on a scholarship?" Like, love the idea, Ryan, but where are we getting the money from? He goes, "I'll handle it." And we ended up raising $6,600 to be able to award to students. We gave out 6 scholarships that year. And, then we had a silent auction guy to help raise additional funds to be able to reinvest into the event. And after that, obviously there was some uh, excitement around the community. The media picked us up thanks to the Sports Authority. They called us up and said, "Hey, can we be part of this? What do you got going on?" After the event, well, not even after the event, it was when we were right about to open at St. Arnold's. The Zamboni just got dropped off, and there's a line to get in. And I turned to my wife. I'm like, "Uh-oh." And we saw probably about 1,000 people there before, St. Arnold even opened. You saw every hockey jersey. Michel Petit calls me. He goes, "I just pulled up, but I can't find a spot to park." I hop in the car. He punches me on my shoulder so hard. He's like, "Look at that. There's a Rangers jersey. There's a Avalanche jersey. You name it." He's going through it. And he's just getting fired up, excited. He goes, "I can't believe this. Look what we've done." And, a crazy idea turned out to being 4,000 plus people. St. Arnold's ran out of beer, long lines. Immediately after that event, St. Arnold's called Mark Tushman and I up and said, "We apologize. We hope we didn't ruin the event." Said, "You didn't ruin it. You made the event, because who would have ever thought 4,000 people would come out to Hockey Day in Houston?" And he said, "We're going to do this next year, correct?" And we said yes. So TC, Ryan Brooks, myself, and Tush, we met almost immediately, and they said, "What are we going to do for next year? How do we outdo ourselves?" And the answer was, we need to invite the Howes back to Houston. And I made a phone call to Charlotte Graham, and I said, "Charlotte, what are your thoughts?" She said, "You should ask and see what happens." So we emailed Mark and Marty, and Mark calls me up, late at night. It so happened to be TC Lewis's anniversary, and I know he hates me saying it, but Mark says, "Lance, not only are we going to accept, but we're going to offer a $25,000 matching donation to be able to invest in hockey in Houston." And my first instinct was, wow, how do we do this? So first call was to TC Lewis. He's at his dinner with his wife. He steps away because I said, "Please call me. Very, very important." Like a little, teenager, just all excited to, reveal your first crush, just said yes to asking him out. And TC just was in awe. Hockey's most famous family is going to give us $25,000. So we relied on hockey players in business to help, fundraise, and Ryan Brooks and Tush and a bunch of others. We raised $30,550 last year to meet a $25,000 matching donation. It was so successful. And then we added the Hall of Fame banquet, and we added a youth hockey tournament to it to add to the weekend. The event was so successful that Mark said to me afterwards, "We're going to offer a second $25,000 donation to matching donation." And I'm not going to reveal it yet, but we're extremely proud of what we have done so far. Things are moving very positively, I will say. But it's a kudos to everybody who's joined and is together part of this big mission that, no matter what organization you are, if you want to be part of this, we're going to invest and help grow it. And then when you see like the Women's Hockey Outreach Association of Houston and the Houston Storm did for the inaugural Girls and Women's Hockey Day, piggybacking off the event, and they ran with it and did a tremendous job, having 150 plus people to watch the Women's Olympics, and then the watch parties around town. It was at the Arrows 50th reunion. The term was used by Mark Howe. Houston is a hockey town. Jack Stanfield said it. All the players said it in their speeches. Houston's a hockey town. And that's the slogan that we go with. Houston is a hockey town. It never left. People just have put it on the back burner. But our job and our goal and our mission is to make sure that people know that hockey in Houston exists. It's a year-round sport. Going to an ice rink is an alternative to going swimming in the summer. It's actually a lot cooler than it is than going swimming in the summer. And, I think the greatest takeaway is knowing that probably over 50 plus hockey players have come through, have started playing hockey or come back to the game because of the events that, this, real community came together to build. And, I don't think we're going to take our foot off the pedal. We're going to keep pushing. And, we want to see hockey grow. We want to see more ice rinks in Houston. We want to see more people play hockey. And, it's just truly exciting to be part of it.
There's a lot to touch on with that answer here. I guess thing number one, I had no idea that's where the slogan came from, and so cool. That is a cool origin story that needs to get out there more. Thing number two, just because of the time of my life where I came up with where I came into hockey, I've never watched a shift from the Howes live, but they're my favorite hockey players now, just because it hits me where I live, the scholarship stuff. And
I'll just say this: hockey's greatest hockey family, Mr. Hockey, their family has given have given $50,000 to Houston hockey in the last 2 years. Just let that sink in. For the Charlotte Graham after last year's event sent me a book, The 5 People You Meet on Your Way to Heaven. And it's really about, not just living life, but any journey that you have in life. And if she hears me, if she's watching right now, she's probably tearing up. But when we are able to give out scholarships to these students, Ryan Brooks, who had the brainstorm of the idea, in December of 2023, and then be able to honor these students now and these student athletes with the Howe Foundation. Gordie Howe has now been one of their 5 people in that journey, and Mark and Marty. And that is just an incredible story to know that, without professional hockey here in 13 years now, we're still able to recognize the Howe family. And, it is emotional for me because without the Howes, I wouldn't be working in the industry that I do. And it's just, they're not hockey legends. They're great people. They're family people. And we just said after this year, you have an open ticket. If you guys want to come back year after year, we want the Howes in Houston. We want Houston to become Houston again.
That's fantastic. Do you have a favorite example of a tangible effect of the Howe Foundation's contributions? Do you have a story that's come from? Yeah.
Honestly, I think when we were able to, when we have a committee that divided up the money where to reinvest it last year to the different organizations. And when you get to be able to send that email out, and in that you're able to say, as a partnership with the Howe Foundation, that we are now offering new opportunities. I'll use, for example, the Houston Storm. They have a girls try hockey for free. They used it for girls hockey weekend. And then they send a thank you note to the Howes, on their behalf. And the women used the money to help create a clinic for their players to become stronger skaters. and to hear that, the impact that they made, and it's just not one clinic, they still have opportunities to do so from the amount of money that was invested to them. Or, for sled hockey, I know it's a little, I may be a little biased, but we have a lot of sleds for our players that are outdated, and to be able to go use that money to buy new sleds so new players can play. I think the greatest, I wouldn't say opportunity, but the greatest effect is the impact that the Howes have made, whether it's through the scholarship or to be able to allow people to play hockey who have never been able to play hockey before. So that's, I think, the greatest takeaway from it.
Yeah, you mentioned the Storm and Whoa. Yeah, I talked to the Storm at last year's hockey day, and those young ladies were so poised and confident, and it was beautiful to watch. And then when we get to girls and women's hockey day, there's a very different energy, but it's cool. I mean, but they have their own flavor, I guess, for hockey events, and it was a vibe, as the kids say,
Well, I
and it
think
was
one of the craziest things is when I was up in St. Louis, a good friend of mine, he received a call from, I believe it was Kevin Brown, uh, who helped found the Storm, and they were just seeking out, new ways to help build a program. They were going around the country asking different organizations. And my buddy said to me, he goes, "Do you know these guys?" I was like, "No, I didn't really talk to anybody in Houston that often, and very few people knew that I was involved with hockey prior to, moving here." And when I moved back here and I get to know Eric Kimmel, who's now become a great friend, unfortunately he's a Rangers fan, but we'll keep that amongst ourselves. But, and then Mike Zebak, who not only is the president of the Houston Junior Arrows, but also, involved with the Storm. The Storm are one of the fastest growing girls hockey organizations in America. They are over 100 youth hockey players right now. And then when you see what Woe did this past year and, throughout year and a half with their formation, with over 150 plus, in their database, I think the biggest takeaway is, working in the ice rinks and working in hockey, when you see that women's hockey and girls hockey is strong, it helps grow hockey at all, different. And they, USA Hockey, has uh, different segments to, and disciplines that they use. But girls and women's hockey really does help create a solid foundation for the future growth of hockey. So kudos to, everyone involved with both organizations.
so. As we've been talking, you've mentioned a lot of names. How about that? And that gets me to thinking about Hockey Day because, as you mentioned, 4,000 the first year. What were well, you told us your thoughts coming back after that first year. And I got to tell you, pulling in, I thought the same thing because you look and you see all the tents for, well, the tables with the covers and all the people there. It doesn't look like an amateur production. But then you start to dig a bit and it's an all volunteer effort. What's the planning committee for Hockey
I
Day
just,
like?
I can't, again, every championship team has, the group is always close. The team's always close. We may not always see things eye to eye, but the vision and the long-term plan for success is there. And I will say there's not one person on our committee that I don't have the utmost respect for. And when others step up and they say, "Lance, you're doing too much," I made an ultimate blunder. I'll admit it. I work in events. I'm very critical of myself. When, last year at the Hall of Fame banquet, Fran Schumann looked at my handwriting and she said, "Why did you do this? Why didn't you ask me?" I was like, "I'm sorry." And she goes, "You better include me next year." And to see Fran and Claudia Brown and Olga Wallen and Don Rhodes step up and say, we want to take this on and be part of the team and create an unbelievable experience for all the attendees. That's what a team is. They stand up and they stick up for one another. And, you look at every other committee, we separated out, whether it's Jim Malloy and Mark Shear. And I hate saying names because I did it last year and I forgot names. But they had, Mark and Jim are spearheading the live music. And, everybody's voice, everybody's opinion matters. And what's great about it is that, we do have members who have NHL experience with, myself, Mary and Ian. TC is involved with USA Hockey, and he's no stranger to these block party events. Mark Tushnet puts on parties and events, through the tournaments, and Ryan Brooks, who's got a very large golf tournament. And, we have Chris Billich, utilizing his resources to help with the travel for, the alumni that come into town. What's great about it is it shows why hockey's the ultimate team sport. If you work together, great things are going to happen. And I think we hold each other accountable. Like you said, it's a professional production at an amateur scale. And that's the one key that I do want people to understand, that it is us as volunteers that have the experience around the game and a lot of support of others in and around the game to be able to put on this production. That's why the Dallas Stars are involved. But if we're going to have the House in Houston and we're going to have the Dallas Stars in Houston, we want every hockey fan, hockey player, even casual sports fan to be there and enjoy themselves, because, we want you to walk away and say, you know what? Hockey truly is the greatest sport there is, and we need it in Houston. We need more rinks. We need more opportunities to play the game here.
Okay. So, in talking about Hockey Day, and I do want to get to the banquet, but in talking about Hockey Day, what is something about Hockey Day that a casual observer might overlook? Something that you're like, hey, this is cool. I don't know if enough people know about this.
That almost every organization is part of it. Almost every hockey organization in Houston is part of it. And that is what's truly special. We want, as you go by, we want people to not only watch the game, have, great food and drinks. We want you to go to all the different tables and get to know what hockey in Houston is, whether it is the Junior Arrows, as a travel team, and being able to see that, we recently had one player drafted directly into the WHL from the Junior Arrows, or where they produce players to play Tier 1 hockey, or go up to New England prep schools, or go on to play junior hockey. Or the Storm that, hockey's there, or, for girls to play, or sled hockey. Get into a sled, feel what it's like to play. One of the greatest compliments I had recently was they had no idea there was sled hockey here. And when they saw the program that Jim O'Neill founded, it just is incredible to see their reaction. And now they're hooked. They're going to be coming Saturday to watch the watch party. But hockey's for everyone. I know it's a term that's sometimes overly used, but hockey is the most diverse sport there is. We have a big announcement tomorrow with a new program that's looking to come to Houston. And, we're working really close with this organization with a new rink coming online in the near future. We need to sell more ice to fill it up to make sure other rinks don't close. So, we want you to go to every booth and say hello and say thank you to all the organizations that are truly making hockey special. And then now we're seeing the corporate and, partners come in that really want to support this event. And, what's awesome about it is we get to divide up the wealth amongst all the organizations that are involved in, when they submit, funding requests. It's a difference is being made in hockey in Houston. And Matt, I'm going to just ask you, you now talk about hockey in Houston. Were you doing that 3 or 4 years ago?
Yeah, I was whining. This is Mission Control's mission statement. I was whining, and I will continue to do so until the situation is rectified. So yes, but however, something that I have discovered is that I am not alone in missing the arrows, and which I wouldn't have discovered that if not for Hockey Day in Houston, if not for the show, if not for people in online comments that are a lot that are saying I want to return to pro hockey. And I understand that's not the scope of what we're talking about or the mission for Hockey Day, but it is a thing. People care, and I'm
Maybe someone has eyes on it, right?
well,
You
yeah.
know,
I,
I
I'm
mean,
I'm just glad to know I'm not the only one that's like, you know. And sometimes it feels that way. It does. So, um, okay. So that sounded sadder than I meant it to, but
yeah, it was, but it's all right. You know,
oh well.
I'm just gonna
Yeah.
chirp you when I see you next, so it's
Oh,
okay.
that's okay. Whatever. I'm old
Coming
enough.
from the guy that was biting his nails in overtime, you're all good, Matt.
Mhm,
I forgive you.
mhm. You know what? It turned out, for all you know, that was the good luck charm that made that shot go in. So, you know, now what happens if I don't bite my nails in 2 years at the World Cup? So yeah. All right. We should probably talk Hall of Fame banquet, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Um,
So, it's another part of what, we're passionate about. TC Lewis and I are big hockey historians. We actually have done a lot of research on on Houston hockey. And then there's a lot of guys that are, they have so much knowledge from growing up playing hockey here in Houston. James Johns is a guy who's part of the Hall of Fame committee that he's the first professional hockey player from Houston because he got invited to training camp and Gordie Howe took him under his wing. Dean Hill, who, has, Houston hockey and skate world, very active as a referee and a player when he was younger. Pat Andrade, and then many others that have, transplanted ourselves to Houston. But again, it's that same shared passion to be able to say, you know what, there's been so many people that have come through Houston and have made an impact on hockey. Last year, obviously, marquee names, Ron Graham, Jim O'Neill, who built Star Skaters, uh, the Howells, Pete Donnelly, who's a retired WHA goaltender and, coach in the high school league. And then, of course, I'll say it, Mr. Houston Aeros, Jack Stanfield, who, is just the ultimate person who ever just wants hockey in Houston. He one day was in tears on the phone with me and he said, "Young man, I'm just amazed by what you're able to do in Houston." And with that, he said, "I only wish I pushed harder to have pro hockey return here when he was an executive in sports." And I know you interviewed Jack, but if you talk to Jack, he'll share every opportunity that could have happened with hockey in Houston, and he's so passionate about it. But this year's class, it's truly special. Starting off with Bill Deneen, who's credited for bringing the Howells and brainstorming that idea with Colleen Howell. Pete Deneen, who played in the NHL, but also was the uh, director of player development for the Arrows. He's coming back to represent the Deneen family, even with what the family's going through right now. We have Shelly Podorf, the first woman not raised. She moved here when she was 6 months old. Raised hockey player, Division I hockey player, female wise, playing at Princeton. Terry Riskowski, we don't even need to say his name to anybody that's not a hockey fan in Houston, but he's the only man to ever captain 4 professional major league franchises. Um, we got Bobby Reynolds, who came here as a hockey player, met his wife here, returned, and then he opened up a hockey academy for the kids and to be able to further develop their skills both in the classroom and outside and on the ice. Tremendous individual. Chuck Watson, owner of the Arrows, being able to honor him for all of his accomplishments, fighting to keep the Arrows in Houston for all those years. And then, our marquee, I'm going to call her our headliner this year, even though they all are, is Chi Chi Yard. Chi Chi, born and raised in Houston, is the only female or only Olympic ice hockey player from Houston, playing for Japan in 1998. She's now the group vice president in the NHL, puts on events. So yeah, I'm a little nervous, with the banquet, because she may give me some feedback. But Chi Chi is just she's the epitome of Colleen Howe's award for women in sports, and that's part of the scholarship. So it's an incredible opportunity in an Olympic year to honor the only Olympic ice hockey player from Houston, born and raised. It wasn't done on purpose, but after research, it's a perfect timing to bring Chi Chi back to town. And I can tell you from talking to her, she's so excited and can't wait for the support. And I know the Storm and Woe have done videos congratulating not only Chi Chi but Shelly as well, and giving them a female role model to look up to. There are already so many locally, but one day Houston's going to have another female Olympic ice hockey player, just like Dallas had this past year. But hopefully they're going to say, I'm the next, that's the next Chi Chi Yard playing for hopefully Team USA, but whatever, nation they're playing for, we're going to be more than supportive.
Yeah. For one thing, yes, I saw those videos, and that's cool that they have someone like that as to emulate. But every name that you said coming to the Hall of Fame banquet this year, I'm glad I shut up while you were talking, because I could have said, well, that's a big get after every name. And what's interesting about it is there is another NHL club for a city I travel to sometimes that had an event recently with their players, and they wanted $300 a pop, which that's not horrible for pro major league sports. But the Hockey Hall of Fame banquet for Houston, that's a little over 100. And I'm thinking, that's more relevant to us. We should take the Houston Hockey Hall of Fame banquet somewhat personally, and it's more relevant, and it's really good bang for buck. And I'm wondering, do NHL towns, do they have events like this at the level of value? I mean, we can't expect that from pro sports towns, can we?
It's hard. I mean, that's one of the things that we took into consideration, is that this event is not about, and as you see, Hockey Day in Houston is a free event. We want people there, and I'll touch on that a little bit later. But, for the banquet, you're right. We look to add value. So, we're so lucky with the partners that we've had over the years. St. Arnold's hosting it last year. Unfortunately, they had a wedding booked, this year. But then Silver Street Studios, where it's going to be at this year, opened arms to us and said, we want you here. And we've had tremendous conversations with them, and it's a very unique space. And they've done nothing but help us try to, bring, get the word out that, hey, you know what, hockey in Houston is a real thing, and there's a great crossover between the arts community and the hockey community. But to be able to do a dinner, catered banquet. Yes, it's a cash bar, but a catered banquet. This year, we're, thanks to Longhorn Liquor, we are doing a whiskey and tequila tasting. But dinners like this that I've been around with even one Hockey Hall of Famer could be upwards to $200 or $300 without paying for the food. And we just want people to come out and support, this event, and just show that, hey, you know what? We are extremely grateful for all the hockey history in Houston. I'm going to reveal something with you, Matt, right now, and I'm curious. I haven't posted this yet. We'll announce it after, today or tonight's call, but we had an individual.
Should I maximize your face here for the big
No,
announcement?
I'm waiting for you, but if you give me that frozen, Peter Griffin face like that right now, yeah, we're not going to have that. But there's an individual that reached out to John McLean and said,
Okay.
I have the last net ever used at Sam Houston Coliseum. And I would like to be able to donate it to Hockey Day in Houston and the banquet as a photo opportunity. And he did this the day before we invited Ron and Charlotte Graham back to town. Well, the last goalie to play in front of that net is Ron Graham. So here we are being able to show some history with this goal that was at Sam Houston Coliseum. Now you're able to take a picture with Ron Graham in front of it. I think that's pretty special to any, body. I'm a hockey nerd. You can call me that to my face and I would say thank you. But that is truly unbelievable. So the word is getting out there. More and more fans of hockey from the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, they're coming forward with incredible ideas. They want to contribute to this event. So we look to try to maximize as much of the value we possibly can. And still be able to honor the students and that are going to receive an award because a scholarship because of the Howes coming back to town.
That is awesome. I'm not going to react to the frozen Peter Griffin face comment.
I won't make that face ever again either.
Okay. However, so I assume we've told Ron Graham about this.
I did today. Charlotte and Ron were on vacation, and when I told them that I had a little secret for them today, Ron couldn't believe it. So my next call is probably to Pete Donnelly tomorrow and said, "Hey, we need some of your vintage hockey sticks." Pete, obviously played at Sam Houston Coliseum when he played in the WHA, but to be able to do a photo op with the old goal. The fact that somebody still has it, we cannot thank them enough. John McLean, just thank you for introducing us, to them. And it's truly amazing what something, a positive event can mean to a lot of people. So you're right, Matt. This event, $100, $105. It seems like a lot of money, but we truly try to add value. We worked on a script this weekend. Craig Cohen is the MC. There's going to be a lot of others, pieces and announcements as part of the banquet. We're thrilled that, right now, I think we're at 180 tickets sold right now for this event. And last year we were at 200. We still have, almost 2 weeks. And, there's several of our committee members who still have to pay. Yeah, I just called them out and be part of it. Our committee pays. I pay. It's a charitable event. It all goes to, good, the money that is raised, it goes to good causes. And, you're making a difference in Houston hockey. And we just want to open eyes and just say, hey, you know what? Hockey's never left Houston. You just forgot about us, but we're coming back right now.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay, so this is the hat trick year of Hockey Day in Houston. What's the future hold? Are we going to do this every year?
That's the plan. I said earlier, we're not taking, even though my wife probably is going to say, because I sleep now probably 3 hours a day. I'm up at 3 a.m. working on Hockey Day in Houston, go to work and come back and working on these events. I would tell you this. First off, if you came to Hockey Day in Houston the first year, we had no idea that there was going to be 4,000 plus people there. If you would have told us there was going to be 4,000 plus people, St. Arnold's, and we would have been better prepared. Come back this year. We showed last year that with the extra, beer lines and drink lines and extra food stations, we want you back celebrating the game this year. You missed out on the Howes last year. The Howes are back this year. Ron Graham's back. We got Graham Townsend. We got Blair Stewart, who actually finished his career here in Houston with the Houston Apollos of the CHL. Terry Riskowski, all the Hall of Famers, Michelle Petit, local guys that are playing. I'm trying to get one of my old junior teammates to come support hockey. I'm trying to get that bug back into him. who lives down in Houston, and we haven't seen each other since we were 17 years old. But just come back, support the event. The future, yeah. I mean, I said it earlier too, Matt. We're going to invite the Howes year after year, and we want more and more people there. Our fear is what happens if we have 15,000 people at Hockey Day in Houston. We'll be arm to arm celebrating, and if you're going to complain about it, I'm going to just say, you know what? Houston's a hockey town. Let's suck it up for a day. Let's watch hockey together. Because in other markets, I say it to my wife every time we go to Philadelphia or go to a Stars game, 44 times a year, 20,000 people get to come together in NHL markets and watch hockey and celebrate during the regular season and preseason. We can do it one day a year. So if you're a hockey fan, come out, support it. It's free. Meet some of the alumni. We need your support. Hockey needs your support in Houston. We want to see the Houston Storm double their numbers next year. Look at the impact that hockey had, in the Olympics. We're still talking about hockey in the radio right now. We want to fill every hockey program, 100+ kids. We'll figure out a way to make it happen. The ranks and the teams are probably saying, why is Lance saying this? But it would be the greatest thing ever because it would truly mean Houston's a hockey town.
Indeed. Think about the news stories and the message it would send if we did get way more than is reasonable showing up at St. Arnold's. If St. Arnold's is like, well, there's fire codes, we can't take everybody. Imagine that message being sent to the continent that, hey, Houston had to turn people away at its hockey event. It's a statement piece.
Matt, we already are getting national attention right now. Sports Illustrated has done, 2 pieces. One when we announced Chi-Chi Yard. The other one, they came out and did a story about the Girls and Women's Hockey Day. There's an article that I know that's currently it's currently being put together. Interviewing the Howes and others that are coming back to town. Hockey Hot Stove is a national hockey, media source. I would highly recommend checking it out as we're leading up to the trade deadline. They're more than supportive. They've been sharing our story. I mean, when I look at our social media and look at the analytics, and we're seeing that, we're being reshared by hockey writers in Ottawa or Buffalo or Minnesota or Chicago. We're making an impact. And, again, it's not about bringing professional hockey here. Yeah, we all want to see it. But it's about making an impact on hockey as a game altogether. And that's what, I'm excited for, with the Stars when they come back to town, because it's a unified message is to grow hockey, not only in Dallas, but in Texas altogether.
True. And yes, the event has gotten national media attention, and Houston has gotten national media attention. But I want more. I'm greedy. So there we are. Okay, so for hockey players that are either watching live or will be watching or listening to the recording of this because they're interested in Hockey Day in Houston, can you talk a little about Hockey Players in Business and y'all's mission and how all that works?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably when people hear it, they're saying it's just a scam, and it's the furthest thing from it. I touched on it earlier. When I grew up in my career, if it wasn't interactions in the locker room, with my company, I'm not so sure I would have learned the industry that the way that I have, some of the secrets that are shared in the locker room and, just about the industry. And Hockey Players in Business is an organization that truly is about creating new networks, we use the term Hockey Players in Business, but it's open to fans and everybody who are passionate about hockey. 97% of all funds raised are reinvested into the community, whether it's here, there's 36 chapters now across, the US and Canada, constantly growing. I mean, even Alabama now has a chapter, but our mission locally is that, hey, we want to create new opportunities. You get what you put into it. Yes, we're trying to do more than just Hockey Day in Houston. We do drop-in skates now, but we're also trying to create new opportunities that may help someone in their career. Locally, I know that there's been over $150,000 of business transactions that's been shared with me in the year and a half of, I'm sorry, in the 3 years that we've been around. And whenever you build something, Jim Malloy said it best to me. It's going to take time to have people understand what we really are. And um, we're just getting started. It basically took hockey players in business took a hiatus around COVID, but once people started needing to find jobs that were, lost their jobs, a lot of people, relied on their friends at the rinks. But now we're also creating new national partnerships around the NHL. If you look at us today, we just announced, well, it's been part of an announcement, but the Gaudreau Foundation. We're part of the Gaudreau Foundation and helping support that. And, they have their annual 5K coming up in Jersey, but they also offer a virtual 5K that you can sign up for. Um, our announcement tomorrow is through Hockey Players in Business. Now, granted, I have the relationship from prior, but it's going to be a big announcement that we're extremely proud of to try to help grow hockey in Houston. So, a lot of crazy connections. They do a lot of different speeches, bring in NHL alumni. Hell, we have NHL alumni that are members and chapter directors. Reed Lowe in St. Louis, Kevin Dahl is a chapter director, guys who played 10 plus years professionally. So it sounds crazy to everybody, but their number one mission is that to be able to, create new networks, but give back to the game. And last year they gave back $8,000 to hockey in Houston. Every membership dollar came back, plus, additional funds through national events. So, we hope that you really want to just join, be part of it. We try to add local incentives, and if there's any questions, you can always reach out to me.
Cool. And I have the link to the website in the show notes. So there we are. All right, Lance. Any final thoughts? Anything else that you want to mention? Anything we didn't cover? I feel like we talked about a lot.
Show up on March 20th and 21st. That's all I'm going to say. We want to see this be the largest year. Last year we had 5,500 people. That number may scare people, but it's throughout the course of the day. It's not just at one time. But we're shooting. We want to see 7,000 hockey fans this year, and if we can get that, it just continue to show that, hey, Houston's a hockey town. And I know Mark, Marty, Charlotte, Ron, all the alumni who talk about this event, um, they're going to be nothing more than pleased to know that the impact that they've made to everyone that's a hockey fan here. And this event is not just about hockey players. If you're a sports fan, if you're a hockey fan, if you're a sports fan, come out. If you're a hockey fan, you better be there.
If you're a Houston fan, because this is a Houston-centric event. All right, Lance. I'm gonna put you in the background here, and I'll close this out. All right, man. Thank you so much for joining. Well, friends and neighbors, what did we learn today? Good night. We learned that there's a lot of moving parts to Hockey Day in Houston and all the associated events surrounding it. With that in mind, need more people. So teach your friends about the game. Wave the flag. Have your friends show up. Have your enemies show up to Dick's Place this Saturday, to the Hockey Hall of Fame banquet, to Hockey Day in Houston. And with that, friends and neighbors, until you know what, this was fun. Let's do it again next week.